In the crumbling industrial city of Novokuznetsk, Russia, a gray Soviet town built on coal, poverty, and despair, no one could imagine that a real-life monster was living among them. Behind the door of a small, decaying apartment on Pioneersky Prospect, a young man and his mother were committing acts so unspeakable that even seasoned investigators would be haunted for the rest of their lives. This is the story of Alexander Spesivtsev, known as the Butcher of Novokuznetsk, a serial killer whose crimes blurred the line between cannibalism, madness, and pure evil. Alexander Spesivtsev was born in 1970, during the final decades of the Soviet Union. His father was a violent alcoholic, and his mother, a teacher, raised him alone after the divorce. From childhood, Alexander was obsessed with horror stories and death. He kept a strange collection of dead animals, dissecting them with disturbing fascination. At school, classmates called him the Psycho, but his mother, Lyudmila, always defended him, even encouraging his violent tendencies. What no one knew was that their relationship would become one of the most disturbing mother-son alliances in modern criminal history. In 1991, after years of psychiatric treatment for violent behavior, Alexander was released from a mental hospital. He was supposed to start a new life, but instead, he lured a young girl into his apartment. When she rejected his advances, Alexander brutally murdered her. He tried to dispose of the body, but was caught and sentenced to psychiatric imprisonment. Only 3 years later, the system released him again, claiming he was no longer a danger to society. That decision would lead to one of the darkest killing sprees in Russian history. By the mid-1990s, Russia was collapsing. Poverty was everywhere, and in the chaos, children often disappeared without anyone noticing. Spesivtsev's apartment became a trap. Together with his mother, he lured homeless girls and street children inside, offering food, warmth, and safety. Once the door closed, no one ever left. Victims were tortured, murdered, and dismembered in the tiny kitchen. Their remains were boiled, cooked, and sometimes even eaten. The smell was so horrific that neighbors complained for months. But in a country drowning in crime and corruption, no one came to check. Lyudmila, Alexander's mother, wasn't just a passive witness. She was an active accomplice. She helped lure victims, clean the apartment, and even dispose of human remains, sometimes dumping body parts in the river or giving the meat to neighbors, claiming it was cheap pork. Investigators later said that she seemed proud of her son calling him special and insisting that he was cleansing society of the weak. This twisted partnership would continue for years, right under the noses of authorities. In 1996, 2 plumbers came to fix a leaking pipe in Spesivtsev's building. When Alexander refused to let them in, they called the police. Inside, officers found a nightmare. Blood-stained walls, human remains stuffed in bags, and a bathtub filled with decomposing flesh. In one room, they found a 5-year-old girl still alive, chained and barely breathing. She told police everything: how she and her friends had been taken in, tortured, and forced to witness the murders. It was a scene straight out of a horror film, except it was real. Alexander was captured soon after, hiding nearby with his mother. During interrogation, he showed no remorse. He calmly described the killings, explaining that society was full of filth and that he was cleaning the city. Police recovered the remains of at least 19 victims, though some investigators believe the real number could be twice as high. The apartment was so contaminated with blood and decay that it had to be destroyed. The entire building was eventually demolished. Because of his psychiatric record, Spesivtsev was declared legally insane and sent to a high-security psychiatric hospital, where he remains to this day. His mother, Lyudmila, was sentenced to 13 years in prison, but died shortly after her release. To this day, Alexander claims he did nothing wrong. He told doctors that his victims were soulless trash and that he was chosen to purify the world. Even in Russia, a country haunted by its share of brutal killers, Spesivtsev's case stands out. His crimes combined family loyalty, madness, and cannibalism in a way that few could comprehend. Forensic psychologists still study his case as one of the most disturbing examples of shared psychosis, a folie à deux, where mother and son share the same delusion and moral collapse. Today, the site where the apartment once stood is empty. Locals say no one dares to live there, claiming that screams can still be heard on cold nights. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing is certain: some evil never really dies. Alexander Spesivtsev wasn't just a murderer. He was a product of a decaying system, born into violence, nurtured by obsession, and unleashed upon the vulnerable. His story is a chilling reminder that sometimes the most horrifying monsters aren't hiding in the dark, they're living right next door. Thank you for watching. If you found this case disturbing, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of true crime. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.